All right. So miniatures still going strong. The use of miniatures has largely been superseded by CGI, computer-generated imagery, in contemporary cinema, but it still exists. And while the use of CGI has largely overtaken their use, they're still often employed, especially for projects requiring physical interaction of the asset with fire, explosions, or water. Natural phenomenon. And we can talk about a little bit later why they continue to use miniatures in spite of the prevalence of computers and CGI. And it has a huge advantage to continue to keep using miniatures. By the way, that's Bryan Singer right down there on the set of Metropolis for Superman Returns. So obviously the whole city was a miniature. And at that moment, he's saying, this movie will make about that much profit. No, I'm kidding. And by the way, Bryan Singer, director of the 4 X-Men movies and Superman and Usual Suspects, looks strangely like Benedict Cumberbatch. But is it the same person? We'll leave that for a mystery. No, it's not the same person. But movies that have used extensive miniatures that I'm sure most of you have seen could include Independence Day in 1996, Titanic in 1997, Godzilla in 1998, the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson, starting in 2001 to 2003, made extensive use of miniatures. The Dark Knight, Casino Royale, there's the Dark Knight right there. And we're going to actually analyze a very large segment from the Dark Knight dealing with miniatures a little bit later in this. Inception, and you might be noticing, there's a lot of Christopher Nolan going on here. He's a huge fan of miniatures, and he uses them extensively in a lot of his work. Highly successful films have utilized miniatures for a significant component of their visual effects work. Now, when it comes to miniatures, of course, there's a turning point in the industry, 6 minutes specifically, that changed the entire industry of miniature making for movies. If you can guess what that 6 minutes actually was, it was this. It was this guy. It was Jurassic Park. The release of Jurassic Park in 1993, for many aspects in visual effects, was a big turning point. But a big turning point in the use of computer-generated effects, in which physical miniatures would have previously been employed, as well as other techniques like stop motion, which did not make the cut either, and we will discuss that a little bit later. We'll get back to Jurassic Park a little bit later when we discuss stop motion and animatronics and puppets and all that good stuff, because Jurassic Park basically killed those off too. No, I'm kidding, it did not, but it was a major turning point in the industry. So getting back to Jurassic Park, though, combined, all of Jurassic Park's CG dinosaurs only make up 6 minutes of screen time in the entire film. You would think, wow, it's computer-generated dinosaurs all over the place. No, actually, it was only 6 minutes of rendered CGI dinosaurs, while total dinosaur shots actually make up 14 minutes of the 127-minute film. So where did that other chunk of dinosaur footage come from? Well, of course, it was practical effects. Okay. So lots of advantages to using miniatures. Why, you might ask, with the advent of computers, would you still use a miniature to this day if you were making your own film? Well, first of all, a physical object is fabricated and photographed. It's actually made and shot with a camera. Therefore, the textures, the highlights, the shadows, the focal length, they're already included in the photography. It's what we call baked in, okay? It's already there. And they do not have to be built with polygonal objects or 3D meshes, or you don't have to open up Maya or anything like that. You don't have to create any shaders. You don't have to render anything out. You don't have to light the scene. It's already there. It's already in the real world because you built it, and it's right there. So, you know better than anyone, if you're involved in, creating visuals and working with these programs, that just because it's done on a computer doesn't make it any easier. Think of the expertise needed for one sequence. Say perhaps these 3 are heroes escaping from an underground mining area on precipitous rail tracks in a runaway mine car while thugs and goons and villains and thousands of gallons of water are chasing down after them. Okay. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, this is from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Okay. Now, think about what actually would go into all of that stuff. 3D modeling, UVing, texturing, look dev, shaders, rigging, animation, lighting, rendering, compositing, okay, plus the cost of all the software, the rendering engines and the hardware and all stuff like that. So, someone says, I'll just do it in CG. Well, that comes at a cost to build that sequence, okay? And it doesn't even begin to factor in the humongous fluid simulation that you would need to tip over the water tower in the sequence, okay? So there's a lot of work, a lot of expertise there. So clicking through some of these photos of the actual sequence, and if you haven't had a chance to watch Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, came out in 1984 by Steven Spielberg, check it out. Should definitely be on your list. But here's some behind the scenes of the miniatures, and they look like toys, right? And oftentimes miniature makers, model makers use toys because they're already pre-built with articulation built into them. So Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was made, of course, before the era of cinematic CGI in 1984. So they had no choice but to use a combination of rear screen projection, miniature carts, there they are, lights and tracks, and of course, finely crafted little action figures for the entire sequence. Now take a look at the actual modeling and crafting of these characters. These guys look pretty good. Oftentimes when you're worried, is something going to hold up? Is something going to look good in a shot or on camera or in a movie? Motion blur is your best friend, okay? It's going to hide a lot of potential artifacts or imperfections that somebody might actually sit back and analyze and say, something's wrong there, right? So as you watch the sequence, I'm going to watch the sequence here in a second, watch for the discrepancies in the compositing of the rear projection. And if you're a little unsure what I'm talking about when I mention things like rear projection and compositing, rear projection, most of us know that it's just a screen behind the actors. It's there on set, it's very large, and it plays footage while the actors are acting in front of it. Much more on that later on. But one of the tricks to rear screen projection is, of course, getting the color to match the actors. So when you analyze this shot, analyze the background when you actually see Harrison Ford, and does the intensity of the blacks and the whites and the colors and the saturation, does it match the background? And more often than not, with rear screen projection, it will not. Okay, that's just one of the problems that they actually had creating this stuff back in the day. Okay, so watch for the discrepancies in the compositing of the rear projection. Matching black levels was always a major challenge. And how Spielberg attempted to blend the live action of the miniatures to the live action of the full-size elements. One more quick note on this. Note the lack of hyper-realism in the characters, as we can see. You didn't need a ton of realism to sell this. You just needed to sell it for just those few frames of action, placed small enough in the frame, and with motion blur, theoretically and hopefully, the viewer will not even notice the difference. Take a look at this sequence of the mixture of both miniatures and live-action photography.
Watch it on the curve, or we'll fly right off the track!
Water! Water! Water!
Oh, look,
Water! 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 Water!